All right, it is Wednesday. We have the undershirt collar over the jacket collar. Not really sure why. Just kind of felt like today called for it for whatever reason. And we're going to be getting into the Cavs basketball action over the past week, starting with last Wednesday against the 76ers in Cleveland. They lose 118 to 109. You can tell that the Cavs were missing Jarrett Allen in this one, but it's something you have to deal with because injuries do happen in professional sports. And you could tell because Joel Embiid was just a force in this game. 36 points, 18 boards along with 4 blocks. Evan Mobley definitely having his hands full. And honestly, I don't mind him taking some lumps defensively in this game in order to get some experience against an MVP candidate. And I do feel like Evan Mobley did have a respectable outing. He put up a double-double, again, especially going up against what Joel Embiid is doing right now. As far as the actual game, I thought it was a pretty good back-and-forth game between two good playoff teams in the East. Joel Embiid, though, definitely doing a lot of work for the 76ers. It felt like whenever maybe the Cavs had a bit of the momentum, Joel Embiid would definitely do his best to put the 76ers on his back and carry them to making the game competitive again. You probably would have liked to have seen some better shooting, from the outside from Garland and Donovan Mitchell. They didn't have really any good shooting nights for either of those two. I thought Karis LeVert had one of his best games off of the bench, in my opinion. I don't have any complaints about him. Cedi Osman also did fine, but he did get 30 minutes. I do want to see JB Bickerstaff maybe using him a little bit more, even though Osman didn't have his best game. He shot fine, but again, nothing special from Cedi Osman in this one. There's the call at the end where at first Joel Embiid looks like he's getting his 6th foul on the offensive foul. They go to review it or it gets challenged, whatever it is, and they reverse the call. That was going to be upsetting either way, no matter what they called it, whether it was, if you're a Cavs fan like me, you're like, oh, Joel Embiid certainly pushed off, or if you're a 76ers fan, it's, well, Mobley clearly flopped there. It was an easy fall. Whatever the refs were going to come away with that one was going to make somebody upset. And honestly, if for the Cavs standpoint, my view on it is that if you're going to make it that close to where you're depending on Joel Embiid getting maybe a 50-50 call from the refs, then maybe you should have just been better for the rest of the game. But again, I'm not going to yell and scream over a regular season game call, even though this loss to the 76ers does pretty much solidify the Cavs sitting at the 4 seed heading into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be catching the 76ers with as few games as they have left. And I'll get into more standings talk at the end here. A tough loss, but in either way, it is a tough loss. You'd like to see a response. And they got one on Friday when they played the Wizards at home and they won 117 to 94. This was the kind of game you would expect from the Cavs after a tough loss at home to the Sixers. Despite another rough shooting night from Garland and Mitchell, they still get the job done pretty comfortably. Evan Mobley would continue his stretch of good play, 20 points in this one along with 4 blocks. I thought the defense did a fine job. Obviously, when you hold an NBA team to less than 100 points, you usually come out on the better end of that game. Even though, Bradley Beal and Tingus Pingus did get their points in with that one. Karis LeVert with another encouraging bench performance. I think that's somebody who we're going to really need to have their A game when the Cavs do play in playoff games. And I do think they're pretty much a lock to be playing in a playoff game, and that might even get home court if all things go well. And something that I did miss in last week's review for the Cavs week that I kind of want to show up here is that Dylan Windler is getting minutes. He got 4 in the game against the Wizards, and he didn't make his only 3-point attempt. So I guess he's not playing big minutes, obviously. He's only gotten, I think, 4 in both games that he's been in. But if they can ease him back into the lineup, he can be somebody that can come off the bench and maybe have a surprise impact once the playoff comes around. Then they had 3 days off before playing in Brooklyn against the Nets on Tuesday, which was yesterday. They won 115 to 109. Jarrett Allen returning to the lineup from his eye injury, which apparently the Cavs were lucky that wasn't worse, so it's good to have him back in the lineup. He didn't really seem to be on a restriction either, playing 35 minutes in the starting 5, and he did put up a double-double. So Jarrett Allen hopefully is all systems go for this final stretch here for the Cavs in the regular season. Although it was a rough start, they gave up 30 points in the first quarter. Maybe the time off had a little bit to do with it. Maybe they spent a night out in Brooklyn and partied a little too hard. I'm not sure. But they did get their act together in the second, with the Cavs bench actually putting on some pretty good work. Cleveland really putting their foot on the gas against the Nets in the third quarter. They did build up a commanding lead. Donovan Mitchell, coming out of his shooting slump, probably had a lot to do with that. He put up 31 points and had a much better shooting night than he was having the past couple games. But then the fourth quarter started, and at first everything seemed kind of normal. The Cavs were up by 20. Donovan Mitchell just with a huge dunk on Yuta Watanabe, putting him on a poster. That was a really mean dunk, and it definitely caused a reaction, as it should have. But the Nets, giving credit to them, they did not die off. They slowly started to make their way back around the middle of the fourth quarter to the end of the game. And this kind of a showing does make me a little nervous down the road. Day'Ron Sharpe, who was really solid off of the bench throughout the entire game for Brooklyn, he really did cause some havoc in the fourth quarter in their comeback stretch. The Nets were actually able to play the foul game where they're trying to get the Cavs to miss some free throws, because they were some missed free throws away from having a chance to steal a win from the Cavs in this one. But the Nets did not steal the win. The Cavs were able to get the W, which is ultimately what matters. But obviously, I think you want to see a better closeout effort from the Cavs in the fourth quarter. They were up by 20 points in that last quarter. You probably want to see them put that away a little bit more emphatically. But they do have a chance to get that done tomorrow when they play the Nets in Brooklyn once again, kind of the same time, same place kind of thing. So overall for the week, they did pretty good. They did what they had to do to keep their fourth seed in the East at, it locked in. They're probably getting that home playoff series, but again, there's still 8 games left to play and anything can happen. Cavs are the 4th seed. They're 3.5 games behind the 76ers and 3.5 games ahead of the Knicks. I don't see them moving up or down in either direction, but again, I guess crazier things have happened, and they are still 6.5 games ahead of the play-in with 8 games left, so it's still technically possible that the Cavs could end up in there and have hopefully, if they do end up falling in the play-in tournament, again, I don't see it happening, but it is possible. Hopefully, they would have a better time this year than last year. But again, knock on wood and all that stuff, I don't think it will be that big of an issue for the Cavs. They probably will have the 4 seed locked up, and we're just kind of playing out the string until the playoffs start. But you don't want to sleep on these games either, because heading into playoffs with momentum is definitely an important thing to have. And we'll see how things shake out in the next week to come. So thank you all for watching. If you made it this far into the video, I will see you at the next one.